All right. I cannot hear me because the wind is a problem. But this may not be a good idea. I may not be able to do this. I thought that I was hiding from the wind. Thought I was hiding from the wind, but I'm clearly not hiding from the wind. Let's see. No, it's still so windy. Shoot. Um, and I don't know what to do about that. Okay, if you guys can hear me, put a one and let me see. I know I'm moving around a lot now, but I'm trying to fix it so that I can block the wind. Okay, so you can hear me. Okay, so I'm gonna try this and see if this will block the wind. Hey B, how are you? Kelly O, good to see you. Blue Bella, welcome. Moonlight View, good to you. Again, my apologies. The wind is really, it is very strong today, but it is a gorgeous, really, really beautiful. I mean, there is not much, there's a little bit of a cloud right there, not much. So it is a lovely, really, really pretty day here on the Texas Gulf Coast. Um, I'm going to talk a little bit about of course, Kelly, it's good to see you. Oh my goodness, Bluebella. Oh, I'm sorry. And I feel your pain. I feel your pain. I cannot get rid of my cough. So just stay in the hospital as long as you do and try to get well because it is not fun. It is terrible. Um, I just hate that it's so windy because there's no way y'all are going to be able to hear me, but this is the way it is. So I was going to try to talk a little bit about Sarah Boone. I have nowhere to hide from the wind. I thought this was going to do it. Okay, let me try to turn this direction, see if that'll help. All right. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Sarah Boone. Wasn't it so interesting? Wasn't it so interesting the differences between the mental health experts and what they had to say about Sarah Boone? And there were a lot of people that said, oh well, she's narcissistic personality disorder, and there was quite a bit of, I guess, shock and surprise that she was not outright diagnosed borderline narcissistic personality disorder. Although all three did take account of narcissistic features, and I think that where people got so discombobulated, maybe the shocking part of it perhaps is that they just neglected to her a full personality disorder diagnosis. I stand firmly by my position that I do think that she is such, her history and the way she presents socially in the recordings that we saw, that is so consistent with histrionic personality disorder. And, a lot of people argued back and sort of said, well, what about the feature hypersexuality, staunch gender roles, and that kind of thing? She didn't really satisfy that particular criterion. And I said, that is not true. We saw the video of her coming out of the apartment, doing little cheerleader jumps, and getting right up close to top, smiling, kind of being kind of coquettish. Her thing was not so much to act like that stereotypical kind of sex pot thing. Her manipulation was in the form of, look how cute I am. I'm just a little girl. How can you deny me, right? Which is consistent with the fact that she seemed to have at some point gotten stuck her psychosocial development of anywhere between about 13 and 15. She would not have developed that adult sexuality. She would not really have developed that level of promiscuity, even though, when I say that, how much evidence did we end up with once we got to the end, where she was threatening George that she was going out to bar and she was going to go and pick people up. George, we know, had called her, well, according to her, that she had asked some man for a light for a cigarette, and George got all upset and threatened her of flirting and that kind of thing. So I think, I know Kelly, I know Kelly, sex pot and Sarah Boone do not belong in the same sentence. but we did later, after we got to the text messages, then we did begin to see where she was threatening him and manipulating him, that she was going to go out and go to the bar and hang out with men. And he did, in fact, end up, according to her, call her a slut. Or no, I think it was a whore. And that, she was sort of using that taunt toward him. And so that would be consistent with his personality disorder. The other thing was the constant accusations that he was cheating on her, constant accusations. And can we just deal with reality here? Who was the person that had learned helplessness? Was it Boone? Did you see Sarah Boone sitting helplessly on the floor waiting for her punishment to happen? Or was that in fact George that was sitting on the floor in learned helplessness? Sarah Boone is currently, right now as we're speaking, she's figuring out how to reach out to the jury and get them to change their minds on her verdict. That girl doesn't have any level of learned helplessness at all. None. Zero. Okay. George showed all the signs of a dog who was getting beat every day. The poor guy was absolutely terrorized. I'm convinced of it. And is there reactive violence? Yes. There is reactive violence, that when someone pushes, beats, eventually you may snap and fight back, right? Even a dog, you can kick a dog, beat them, hit them. They learn to just cower and tremble and accept it. And then one day you're in shock because his paws are around your neck. That is consistent with abuse. All right. So, I hate to disagree with, these. The psychiatrist was great. I was on board with psychiatrist. But I'm sorry that Owen's psychologist, you do not look. How do you do a court-ordered forensic evaluation and you don't at least do a PAI or an PI? That is insane. The tests, the assessments that she said that she gave Sarah, those are kind of like supplemental instruments. The core assessment was not completed. She didn't do an IQ score. She didn't do the personality. Did not do a hair test of psychopathy. What did she get paid to do? Oh, we know. She got paid to have an opinion that Owens wanted her to have. And, here's the bad part. That was a televised trial. And do you know how many psychologists were watching that trial? What do you think her colleagues thought about her testimony? the failure to provide an accurate assessment, that she did massive damage to her professional reputation, in my opinion. So I did very much like the psychiatrist, or well, both of them actually, but I did very much like the psychiatrist, and I was really glad to hear that she finally said, well, according to Brian, she's the aggressor. So I thought it was curious to me that they waited so long before they said that. I don't know why the prosecution did not play that part of the body cam. It could have easily been brought in as primary evidence. I don't know why. I don't know why they didn't show it. But for whatever reason, they didn't. So, no, it was lacking in a visible manner, almost like look. There's no way that she did a forensic evaluation and did not give an MMI. That didn't happen. I think probably what happened is she did administer those instruments, and when they came back, it made her look just exactly like we all think it did. And Owen said, "Well, let's just don't cover that." And if that happened to me, I'll just say this: if that happened to me, if I did an evaluation, I was requested either prosecution or defense, either one, and then I sat down with them, showed them the results of what my professional opinion was going to be. If they said to me, well, we're not going to report this, we're not going to talk about the MMPI results, or we're not going to talk about the hair test of psychopathy, my reaction, my position would be, if you put me on the stand, I'm going to testify accurately. That's it. So this is what I'm going to say, because this is where my professional knowledge leads me. Then they would say, well, we don't want you to testify. Goodbye. They'd pay me my final sum, and then they'd hire somebody else to come behind me and do the same thing. It would be very interesting to know how many psychologists that Mr. O would talk to. It'd be really interesting. So, nevertheless, no matter what, at the end of the day, the prosecution was amazing the way that they presented their case. I think they would have won their case with or without their psychiatrist or expert witness testimony. I was in a complete and total state of shock that Sarah Boone's psychologist did not know what the standards were for Florida for battered spouse syndrome. It's in the books. It's a statute. You have 4 conditions that you have to meet. And each state is a little bit different. You have to read your own state's laws. But she acted like she actually said the words, "No, they're not written down anywhere." And I was like, the hell they're not. They're right here. I'm looking at them. I don't remember now what it was, 370.2 maybe, or 2. I don't remember. So that was shocking. That was a huge surprise. I was, how in the world can you be a forensic psychologist, make a statement on whether someone can aid in their own offense, whether they're insane or not guilty by reason of insanity? How can you do that if you don't know what your Florida statutes are? How can you do that? So I don't know. That was a very curious testimony that she gave, and I do think she probably did irreparable harm to her professional reputation. Do y'all remember Alice Laviolette? Who remembers Alice Laviolette? Hey, Kim, how are you? Hi, Debbie Dunn, welcome. Yeah, Alice Laviolette was the expert witness for the defense in the prosecution of Jodi Arias. She was a master's level therapist, but she had written a book on domestic violence, and so she did these workshops with domestic violence, things like that. So She was a self-described expert, but didn't have the ability to do the proper testing that a forensic psychologist or a clinical psychologist can do. She really didn't have the knowledge background, but she was able to testify for Jodi Arias in a way that was consistent with her testimony. And unfortunately, by the time that the prosecution's forensic psychologist got up there and testified, Alice Violet was ruined. Her professional reputation was badly damaged by putting herself into a situation that she simply wasn't. In her case, I didn't feel like she was misleading. I didn't think there was anything unethical. I just felt like she did what her level of training and experience led her to do, and that she really believed what she was saying. But this situation was quite different. That psychologist knows exactly what she should have, the instruments that she should have given, or the types of instruments that she could have given, and she didn't. It was really, really curious. But you don't know how closely that she and Owens worked together. You don't know how many of Owens's cases she'd been on. I was able to look her up. She's been in the newspaper because she caused some real problems with people that were like murderers. She had she looked at their cases differently, and that caused the court to maybe be lenient. And so there were actually newspaper cases written about her, where she, kind of was not a friend of the prosecution. I did not find where she had ever done any work for the prosecution, that all of her work had been for the defense. So some people like the term court whore. It's a little bit rough and harsh, but it does say, that if whoever's paying your bill, you say what they want you to say. That is something that you avoid at all costs, because it's overall bad for the profession itself. It's also bad for patients, because they need to know that a psychologist is not a witch doctor. That if they're good and they know they've been trained well and they know what they're doing, they can help you. They can teach you things and help you work through things so that you get relief and have a happier, more, grounded life. And sadly, I think, Sarah Boone's psychologist did not. She created some doubts for some people. So it's kind of sad. Yeah, the Jodi Arias case, we'll never forget it. Can a psychologist file a complaint against people like that to keep the standards? Yeah, you're actually supposed to. That if it comes to your attention that another psychologist is breaking one of the ethical standards or principles, you're supposed to approach them first, try to work out a solution to whatever you see that may be, going against our ethics code, or our principles and standards of professionalism. And then if that doesn't work, they can ultimately work your way up to filing a formal company with the licensing board. So that would have to be done by someone like another Floridian, someone licensed in Florida. So it doesn't ever happen. It's really rare. I think the only times I've ever heard of those cases was like if a psychologist like having an affair with one of their patients. That's pretty creepy and disgusting and gross. But we did see it with the Menendez trial. I mean, that was, and he kind of, the guy was kind of snaky. He said, no, I didn't lose my license because I was having sex with my aunt. He gave up his license before they had time to take it, is basically what happened. But the psychologist did not do wrong. Here's a part of the Menendez case that people got confused by. The psychologist did not lose his license because he kept the murders a secret. That's actually what you have to do. If somebody tells you about a crime that they were involved in after it's completed, right? Once the harm is done, then you can't tell. You can't go to the cops and say, "Hey, I know who killed Lacey Peterson." Can't do that. You have to keep it. It's part of the confidentiality. The standard for Tarasoff is the court decision that governs the privacy and confidentiality of therapist, or communication of patients and their therapist. The Tarasoff decision gives a standard for you have a duty to protect. So if the person says, well, I'm going to kill this person, or I'm going to beat up this person, or I'm going to hurt this person, that's different. You are able to break confidentiality in that situation because you're trying to stop harm from happening to another person. But if it's after the fact, if the damage is done, the crime has been committed, then the protection of patient, psychologist communication still holds. You don't have a right to break confidentiality there. It's kind of weird. A lot of people are shocked to hear that, but it is true. If your patient comes to you and says, I committed a murder in 1972, you can't tell anybody, you can't call the cops or anything like that. So there's that. Any other questions? Owens uses her a lot. She is from from his neck of the wood. There you go, Kim. There you go. And I'm sure she's making her a pretty little penny, upwards of maybe $300-400 an hour, my guess. That is true, Kelly-O. Yep. So in the Menendez brother situation, a lot of people thought he lost his life because he kept the secret. He didn't tell that he knew that they did it. That wasn't the reason. Reason he lost it is because, well, it's a little complicated. He was having sex with his client. That was number one. That would have lost him his license right there off the top. But then it was shown that she overheard a communication between he and the Menendez brothers, and she's the one that went to the cops and said, my boyfriend, the psychologist, told me that they killed their parents. So it's kind of, a little, but the thing that caused him to actually let go of his license, give up his license, it was a sexual relationship with this client. That was what they were taking his license for. That's what they were going after. Yep. It's so hard to believe that any professional psychologist or psychiatrist would actually exploit a patient by developing a sexual relationship. And I've always said, as soon as you catch them, if you know for sure it's happening, you shouldn't take their license immediately. They're obviously not if they're willing to look at a patient as a sexual partner, it's not okay. It's not okay. There's a lot of problems with it. So, all right. Well, I don't know anything else. Yeah, the whole Menendez case it's really interesting. They're going to let those guys out. Y'all know that, right? I'll tell you this too, while we're just chit-chatting. I have been keeping up with the Richard Allen trial, and I have not commented. And the reason I hadn't commented is because it wouldn't be welcomed. There are some problems with that case, y'all. Real problems. And, if you try to talk about it, people are really passionate. They feel like they're in defense of Abby and Libby and the families. And you don't want to go back against, you want to have a conviction, right? To feel better about what happened. But boy, there are some very curious facts that I just don't feel like I can comment on it because I'm not confident. I'll tell you that. I'm also not like, oh, Richard Allen's innocent. I'm not even close. Not even close. But there's enough curiosity there and questionable eyewitness statements, timeline issues, things like that. It is worrisome. So I'm kind of getting myself ready for a potential not guilty or hung jury maybe, just because the facts are not lining up. For example, one of the facts that doesn't line up is the girls, Abby and Libby, who picked them up and took them to Libby's house the night before, right? They've got two completely different stories that it's impossible that one or the other, they can't both be true. So who lied? Anna lied, Abby's mom? Or was it Liberty's dad that lied? Derek, the dad, he has, from the very beginning, people have had questionable thoughts about him and his associates. So when you know for a fact that what they admitted into a court of law, that it is impossible that Anna is giving accurate testimony and Derek German is giving accurate testimony, it's impossible. They are, one of them told something that's not true. Then it doesn't even matter if you know what the truth is, because you're left with that feeling of, well, the bigger question is, why did one of them need to lie? Like, why is this happening, and that they're both having a different story? They're saying, well, that's my story and I'm sticking to it, and that's just how it's going to be. So really, maybe it's one of those things that you got your days of the week mixed up. I'm good with that. But it's enough. There's enough trouble with the timeline, enough trouble with some of the witness, statements. For example, all the eyewitnesses, none of them ever said that that Richard Allen looked like Rich Guy. None of them. And you're just like, damn, what? How's that? There were so many people on the trail that day. How? So I don't know. It is so much vague and questionable facts. I don't have an opinion, good or bad. I don't know what to believe or who to believe. I don't know. And of course, if you have to err on the side of caution, you're on the side of the cops, the investigation, right? That there are bad cops in the world, but most of them are good people and trying to do what's good for the community. But it's still very curious. The timeline for when they were around town, Libby's phone pinging in town. On Libby's phone, the Find My Phone was turned on. Okay, so why didn't they just walk right out there to the location? Because we do have Becky Patty's husband that night around midnight. He came out and said her phone is pinging all over town. He later came back and said, oh, well, he was tracking the phone herself. We didn't get it through AT&T. Okay, but the problem is she has an iPhone and Find My Phone feed was turned on. So there was no reason to track her. Just turn it on, and that's where her body should have been, laying right there. So there's something weird, y'all. Something weird about it. Yeah, that's something else they're dealing with, Diane, in the Koberger case. The police have badly bungled the investigation or the evidence for what they did. That you're sort of left with this question of, wow, how are they going to manage this during the trial? Like, how can you destroy documents as the lead investigator? How can you destroy evidence, but you believe you're going to be able to get up on the stand and just testify to it, that you don't have to show any of your work? So Koberger's another one. Y'all just get ready. I don't know how so many of these cases got so messed up, but it is very frightening. Because in the case of Koberger, I think they got the right guy. I do. I think he did do it. I think he's a good fellow. And I think one of those girls hurt his feelings. That's how I think it played out. But And then I think that Xana and Ethan were collateral damage, that they were not supposed to have been killed. So, but again, all this is just me talking, just my opinions. Doesn't amount to a hill of beans. But it is, what it is. So I just hadn't made any videos because anything I would say is going to just make people mad. So hadn't said anything, but I hope you guys are doing okay. I'm going to quit talking. I'm going to take a quick walk out here so y'all can look at the water. It's really, really, really pretty today. And then I will end this. And it was great talking to you. I hope everybody is doing well. The girls absolutely deserve justice, Kelly. 100%. And that's why I don't understand why the cops didn't I don't know why they didn't pin these witnesses down on their timelines. I just can't understand it, but that's where we are. So can't do anything about it, right? I've always wondered why Derek moved across the country afterwards. I mean, it's a question, Kelly. And the fact that his story just simply didn't align with the known timeline. I think Anna, Abby's mom, I think her story is the accurate one. I think Anna is the one that told the truth. But I'm not saying that means that I think that Libby's dad had anything to do with it. I don't think that. Maybe it's one of those situations. Maybe he was involved in some illegal activity that he just didn't get caught. It's hard to know. It could be a million different things. Maybe he was with a married woman and didn't want to get caught. You don't know. But I'm not even thinking, oh, maybe he has to do that. I don't think so. No way. Those girls were not killed by anyone that loved them. That is a certainty. Whoever did this to those girls, they are a sick puppy. That is the absolute truth. I believe that in my heart and soul. So, but still, the prosecutor, the investigators, they really should have tried to clean up the evidence and really get the timeline in good shape. It's a lot of trouble. But anyway, I'm going to take a little step forward out to the water and to peek at it because it's really pretty today. We don't often get white caps out here, so it's blue and it's white capping and looks like the ocean. So we got wildflowers growing. See my wildflowers. You probably can't hear me because the wind is. Oh, we got a lot of junks. Damn. That's got to be cleaned up before the next hurricane comes through because that will cause damage. All right.